And here we go, episode 3 of our Descent Legends in the Dark painting series, where we're going to be painting Galaden, the elf, archer, assassin, whatever he is. But this is a very good miniature, and all these miniatures are fantastic. Fantasy Flight did a great job while doing this. This isn't going to be too crazy hard, pretty easy, pretty straightforward. Just follow along and you will do just fine. If this is your first time at the channel, or if you are a returning person and have not hit that subscribe button, hit that subscribe button. Come on, what are you waiting for? We're going to be doing the whole series. We're doing a whole bunch of stuff. Still working on Madara, doing Descent. We got some other games coming out, so you got nothing to lose but to hit that subscribe and watch these videos. Otherwise, let's go. Obviously, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to scrape off all those nasty mold lines. As you're watching this video, if you see something I'm using, paint, whatever, look in the description below and you can see whatever I am using. There's links to everything. First thing we're going to be doing is hitting it with a black primer with an airbrush. You can use a spray can if you want, and then we're hitting it from above with some white. And this is a pivotal portion, and I had missed part of the video as it was deleted, so make sure you hit that white up as well as we're watching this step 2 base portion, and we're back in it. And the first thing we're going to be doing is going to be doing the base, and we're going to be hitting that tree stump up with some Cygor Brown. And the first thing you're going to be doing for the base and the autumn look we're going to be going for is some Militarium Green. You want to slap this all over the bottom of that base, and we're going to do this all in succession while they're all still wet. So hit that with that Militarium Green, which is contrast paint, of course. Next, we're going to take some Plaguebeaer Flesh, get a nice little brush full, and you're just going to dollop that in random places on the bottom. We're just creating that tone variation of greens and yellows that we're about to put into this thing. Next, take some of that Nazdreg Yellow and put that in the middle of everything, just to make that nice little, again, tone variation, make it look a little dead foresty as we're going to fall in America. After they have all dried, take a nice little dry brush, and we're going to use some Banelblade Brown and hit up that stump just to make it look a little bit more standoutish. Next, we're going to take notice to some leaves that are on the bottom of our base, and we're going to paint them in 3 different colors. The first one being Firedragon Bright. Like I said, we're looking for an autumn look. We want that nice little autumn, fall, very festive type of look, like our archer is going through the woods. So we're just picking random leaves and we're covering them with some Firedragon Bright, picking out the raised areas of our leaves, not doing anything crazy here. Next, we're going to take some Wazdakka Red and do the same thing, just picking out certain leaves for our autumn base. And then we're going to take some Averland Sunset and pick out the remainder of the leaves that we have left, and that's all we're doing for our base. Next, we're going to start on the base coat of our miniature for the skin, and we're going to be using Cadian Fleshtone going on all the skin areas. Now, I know I went over it with the right hand, and I want to keep the right hand skin tone. I just thought that would be easier to do it that way, so I did it that way. Next, we're going to take some Dryad Bark, and we're going to use this on multiple areas of our miniature, the first one being the hair of our elf. And make sure we are thinning our paints, because you can tell that that white is sticking out, and that's exactly what we want. It's going to make our highlighting areas during the highlight phase so much easier to do, so make sure you're doing that. Next, we're going to paint about 80% of the bow with Dryad Bark, leaving only the little inward portions of our bow white. Next, we're going to paint all of the shafts of our arrow in the Dryad Bark. And finally, that little brown portion on the inside of his sash with Dryad Bark. For our brown leathery areas, we're going to be painting this area with some Steel Legion Drab. Now, as we put more colors on, you want to be as careful as possible not to get it onto whatever we've painted so far, so just take your time and enjoy the paint. For the cross swords, we're going to be using some flat earth from Vallejo. If you don't have flat earth, you can use a Xandri dust, or you can use Steel Legion Drab again if you want. It doesn't matter. Starting with our quiver, we're going to paint some Rhinox Hide onto that. The front groin protector of our elf. And the back leather area in Rhinox Hide. For our cape, part of the shirt, and the trousers that our elf is wearing, we're going to be starting with some Waaagh Flesh. And make sure you're thinning this correctly, because you're going to see that white stick out real well, and that's exactly what we want. For our bowstring, we're going to be hitting up with some XV88. And for all of our white furry parts, we're going to be using some Corax White to put on there. Again, if you don't have Corax White, you can use whatever kind of white you want, because we're going to dull it down with some Nulin Oil in the washing phase. For the parts of the bow that we left on the inside, we're going to take some Mechanicus Standard Gray and just paint those over really quick. For the lettering that is on the armor, we're going to be using some Zamesi Desert, or Zamesi Desert, or however you pronounce it. I'm using a size 10-0 brush. This is probably going to take the longest thing to do on this miniature, so take your time and again, enjoy the paint, put on a book, listen to some music, and just outline all of those letters. And that should be all of the base coat. Moving on to the washing step. We're going to take some of that Reikland Fleshshade, and we're obviously going to want to hit up all of our fleshy areas. Simple as that. And while you're painting all these washes and you are going to let them dry after the step, go ahead and head over to our Instagram, which is nerd.nights, and keep up to date with whatever we got going on. For the green cape portion, we're going to be using some Athian Camoshade. For the white fur and the white fletchings of our arrows, we're going to be using some Nulin Oil. And for all of our brown bits, to include the bow and the leathers, we're going to be using some Agrax Earthshade. You can also use this on the hair as well, and the quiver. And obviously let this thing completely dry before moving on to the fifth and final step of highlights. The first thing we're going to be doing is the most challenging part. Use a Ties 10-0 brush. We're going to use some of that Corax White and put in our dollop of white into the eye. It has a pretty good outline, so it should not be that difficult. Next, take some Moot Green and put that just right in the center of that eye. And take some of that Abaddon Black and put it right in the center. Less is more in this scenario. You do not want very much paint on the tip of your brush. You just want a nice little pupil. That's it. Next, we're going to highlight probably the focal point of this miniature, and it is the skin. We're going to take a reapplication of Cadian Fleshtone, and we're going to put it on our raised areas. Now, you can tell that the contrast that was created by the Reikland Fleshshade is making his muscles stick out just that much more, and we do not want to go into the recesses. We want to hit up the bridge of the nose, the forehead, the ears, the mouth, the cheekbones, and the chin. We also want to focus on obviously the raised areas where you can tell there's muscles, so just follow along. We also want to make sure we want to hit up our hands, fingers, areas that you can tell are going to be getting highlighted up just a little bit more. So follow along and just enjoy it. Next, we are going to be taking a 50-50 mix of Cadian Fleshtone and Kislev Flesh, and we are going to be doing basically over the same areas. We don't want to go over as much as we did with the reapplication of Cadian Fleshtone. We want to do about half of that with this mixture and just highlighting up a little bit of the area. And finally, for the skin, we want to use some Kislev Flesh and just highlight up some of those little areas. The bridge of the nose, the forehead, the cheekbones, the chin, top of the ears, and little portions of the shoulder and the hands that we want to just highlight up just a little bit. Next, take some of that Gorthor Brown and just kind of do some edge highlighting on our leather bits just to spruce them up just a little bit. After our wash, you can probably tell our lettering was dulled down a little bit, so we're going to take some Zamesi or however you pronounce it, Desert, and we're going to do a reapplication of the letters. Again, this might take a little bit of time, but just take your time on this. For the fur, we're going to be taking a reapplication of Corax White and just hitting up little bits. We want to keep the recesses obviously dark in this. Don't go too crazy with it. going to take some Doombull Brown. We're going to highlight up that hair just a little bit, picking out a couple strands here and there just to make a little bit of a different colorization between the dark and a little bit of reddish, as you can tell in the card art roll. We also want to use this color on our twin swords behind the back and just kind of matching the card art a little bit better with this colorization. We're going to take a 50-50 mix of Dryad Bark and Mournfang Brown, and we're going to highlight up just a little bit on that bow. To highlight up those gray areas on our bow, we're going to use some Dawnstone along with the arrowhead. Use a little bit of this on the tip of our arrowhead. And as we're coming to the finish line, you can probably tell if you did a good zenithal highlight on this that you might not need to highlight it. It is completely up to you. This miniature is ready for the table, but this is just going to give it that little extra pizzazz. So we're going to take some of that Waaagh Flesh and we are going to put it on the raised areas of our cape and on the inside of our trousers and on the arm. Next, we're going to take a 50-50 mix of Waaagh Flesh and Warboss Green and do the same areas again, a little bit less each time we're doing the highlighted areas. Next, we're going to take some Warboss Green and go over the same exact areas we were just doing. And finally, for our final highlight, we're going to take a 50-50 mix of Warboss Green and Moot Green, and we're just going to pick out some areas very sparingly just to give it that nice, very bright green mixed with the dark green that is at the bottom of the cape, and it should look pretty freaking good when you're doing it. that's what it should look like. Pretty darn good right before we do the end of the base. And don't forget our favorite part of painting this miniature, because we are finished with some Abaddon Black or Gray or whatever you want to do around the rim of the base. And that's it, you did it. Looks pretty freaking good. Not crazy hard. I thought I did a pretty good job explaining it. If not, tell me what I need to fix. I have no feelings. I am cold to the touch and at the heart. But hey, thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. If you're not a subscriber, please think about subscribing. Hit that, just hit it. You know you want to, and you watch the rest of the videos. But thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. All right, paint on.